In chapter 35 of the novel Moby Dick by Herman Melville, Ishmael has his first rotation duty standing atop the masthead of the Pequod and goes on to describe the task. Throughout the chapter, he goes into detail about the long history of quote-unquote masthead standing, referencing individuals from across all human history. For example, the Babylonians and stone carvings of people such as Napoleon, Admiral Nelson, and George Washington. He outlines how sailors stand atop the masthead, the highest point of the ship, for 2-hour shifts during daylight. At the tops of these ships, there tends not to be small seating areas. Instead, there are only 2 slats of wood upon which the sailor is to balance, either sitting or standing, depending on which is most comfortable. The purpose of the masthead watch is to spot whales for the ship to pursue for the entirety of the voyage. Ishmael reveals that when performed by young men, they often get distracted and fail at the task. It is not uncommon for them to get carried away by their own happiness upon observing the serenity of the South Seas, thus not fulfilling their assignment. Although Ishmael considers this a natural outcome of beauty, he notes that this phenomenon often angers harpooners who are hoping to find and kill whales.
Alright, so the first quote, "The builders of Babel must doubtless by their tower have intended to rear the loftiest masthead in all Asia or Africa, either yet, ere the final truck was put to it, as that great stone mass of theirs may said to have gone by the board in the dread gale of God's wrath." End quote, Melville 117. This quote is a biblical allusion because it alludes to the story of the Tower of Babel found in the book of Genesis in the Bible. In the story itself, the people of Babylon are trying to reach the heavens, so they devise this plan to make this really big tower.
The next day.
After a few months, they actually make pretty good progress, but this will cause many problems as the people of Babylon start to get really arrogant and prideful, and this upsets God. As a result of this, God switches up their languages, making them unable to understand each other and unable to complete the Tower of Babel. This is important as in relation to the story, this quote shows how being on top of a high point can put arrogance in one's head, just as Ishmael said earlier in the chapter. So the second quote is, quote, "with the problem of the universe revolving in me," end quote, Melville 119. The use of a hyperbole and the expression of theme can be seen within this very short quote. The hyperbole can be seen in the use of the universe, as the universe isn't actually spinning around Ishmael, and he's just using that expression to make the reader understand how much everything is weighing down upon him. And this weighing down upon is very important as it plays into the fact that Ishmael has had self-conflict with himself or conflict with others throughout the book, and he's finally starting to just say it out loud.
Near the end of the chapter, Ishmael states, quote, "For nowadays, the whale fishery furnishes an asylum for many romantic, melancholy, and absent-minded young men." End quote, Melville 120. This quote exemplifies irony as it contradicts the romanticized view many young men had about the whaling industry during Melville's era. More specifically, the word asylum has a negative connotation that suggests that whaling is not all suns and rainbows, despite what some may think. Rather, the harsh reality of the whale fishery is far from being a peaceful refuge that many sought it out to be, and the use of satire highlights the ironic contrast between perception and reality.